Hey everyone, today we're going to be building an Ork Gargant. This is sort of a sci-fi orc robot. So here I am just looking through some of these supplies that I have, sorting out some of the bits. I thought this boat would make a pretty good chest. I'm looking at that big wheel, I got the idea of kind of a unicycle shaped guy. Amazingly high quality sketch, kind of showing the skull tummy and some of the general shape I might be going for. Looking at the parts I had, I knew that I wanted to do a wheeled vehicle as opposed to something that was a walker, so I was looking through some of the different wheels and treads that I had. Definitely had settled on a big front wheel that kind of served for transportation and crushing stuff, so I just roughed it up with a file and the hobby knife there. I added some studs around these spoked wagon wheels. I thought they would make a good looking sort of hubcap there. Top. Cutting off some of the brand names, don't want any of those showing through. Just harvesting a good looking piece from the bottom of this Mega Bloks slab. A couple different pieces I cut in half to make some symmetrical parts. And after testing out some configurations, I cut down these tank treads to be sort of stumpier. Thought that looked more orky. And I actually added a thicker tracker on the outside. Made the housings out of a printer cartridge cover and a little piece of Mega Bloks. Cut the boat in half, or cut the front off, and started testing out some body shape configurations. So for the back, I made this really wide set of wheels. I use my airbrush hose to quickly dry hot glue, so I don't have to wait for the setup time. Roughing up the Mega Bloks, cutting off the knobs. Don't want anyone to know what was actually used to make these armor panels. Some little beads on to make nuts or bolts on the back. Here I'm building the engine using the top of a Parmesan cheese shaker. Some little plastic legs and other components to fill out the interior of it. A couple test fits and starting to tuck in some round engine components around the back. That piece fell out at least once. It was kind of frustrating, but eventually got it settled in. Another cheese lid, which I cut down to fill in some of the space at the back there. After a few tests, got that lodged in, added on the other little fragments to sort of continue the armor down. Just use cardboard here to fill in some of the gaps. You get a lot of round components together, you end up having a ton of gaps. You can fill them afterwards, but I like to put backing in behind so that it's a little bit easier later on. Lots of hot glue. I don't know why this is out of focus, but I'm just cutting down a cardboard panel to fill in some of the back shoulder space. And there's that bit I clicked earlier, along with a Acura front bumper. It's always good to add in grading and some little gribblies. Here I used a tire just to test if the shoulder was level. Highly advanced building technique. Then I made a jig using a whole bunch of Mega Blocks to make sure that the other shoulder was level. At least level with its pair. The catapults ended up being shoulder supports. More airbrush hose. And here we rough up the edges. Again, you want to hide the fact that we're using like Mega Blocks, vacuum of all that excess. Here's another technique I use to hide them. I fill in the bottom and then cover it with paper and rough the edges up to make sort of a flat surfaced brick of metal. Give the illusion of a panel. I sort of filled in the edges with toys and Mega Blocks and then capped them off with cardboard. Here we're gluing together sprues to make teeth or other accessories. This is a good way to make a plastic panel of a sort of asymmetrical or orky sort of shape. Building up the shoulders with some cardboard and then sort of figuring out that side. We're building the front belly cannon out of the top of the soap dispenser and some other little plastic tubes to make some pistons. Just figuring out how that shape would go. Use some spackle there just to fill everything in. That's like a lifesaver, filling in all the weird gaps. Here I'm grinding out some grooves. The Dremel was pretty useful in this project as well. Capping up the shoulders, and then putting some gribblies in behind the headpiece. More spackle. So this is how I can turn cardboard into a continuous metal panel. After this was dried and sanded, I'd cover it with a PVA glue to make a really sort of solid plastic surface. Here I'm making some of those metal blocks again, just by filling them with glue and paper. And then we rough up the edges and no one's the wiser. I wanted these front panels to have some little glyphs or orky details, so one of them got checkerboard. I realized these squares were too big, so I cut them down to half the size. Laid them out on there. The other one was going to get a sort of orky mouth sort of graphic going on. Adding some bolts to the lower chin of this orky mouth. There they are, fixed on the front. And starting to fill in some of the middle detail using some sprues. The bottom jaw there is some feet from a Transformer toy. Using the plastic straw to add some more detail to the sort of pistons or machinery on the bottom of these jaw pieces here. There's my rudimentary skull, just made out of some sprue and paper. Testing out and then sort of filling in the shape with more, mostly foam core, and then just some regular card as well. Bit of this weaving screen, give a bit more detail on the gun there. There's a whole bunch of pipes, so I'm going to build the exhaust. I got this one really cool looking gold detailed pipe, and then a bunch of other stuff, mostly elbow straws, but also a piece from a soldering gun. The thicker plastic straw I'm using is from the inside of a soap dispenser. So just sort of testing and building and configuring multiple sizes of tubes here and then attaching them in. The black tubes on the side there are hair elastics, bent and glued into place. Here's another one being added. Makes a really good bent pipe if it's a thick enough hair elastic. There's the top of the soldering, or the end of the soldering gun. Bending a little piece here just to make a curved pipe. That's some sprue, rounded sprue from a airplane kit. Cut some little tubes here to make some bands that are holding it onto the engine. More hot glue and airbrush combination. There's some little roadways or ramps from Mega Blocks again. I cut them in half and then after testing a few configurations added them in. Small piece under the back of the shoulders and then the larger piece as a back armor panel. A couple of teeth details along the back, kind of like a license plate for this. Then tons of spackle. This is a 15-minute drying type, which was a total lifesaver. Really helps to cover up all the odd things that can arise from using strange bits. Adding some front armor detail here using sprue. We're making the incisor teeth for the stomach skull, or whatever you want to call it, the front skull. More spackle to fill in all the details, or all the gaps rather, and then sanded it smooth. And afterwards this gets covered with PVA glue as well. It makes a really hard surface. The glue sort of absorbs into the spackle. So much filing. For the teeth that are farther back, I just used foam core. Later I filled in the edges of that with PVA and spackle so you can see an exposed foam edge and to give them strength. There's the eyes and nose being put into place. Use these little rhinestones to make bolts. They make very good bolts. Or rivets. Put those into place in the skull and then started to do some rivets on the shoulder panel here just to kind of test out how that would look. Worked out pretty well. Got the Dremel here to grind in some more detail, and in the Ork sense of detail, that's just battle damage. Lots of battle damage. Setting up some rivets on the other shoulder here. I didn't do as many as I perhaps could have. Probably could have made them a lot more rivet heavy, but just sort of spaced them out around the panel. Setting up the rivets on the chest or stomach. Rhinestones are really good for rivets, but they're very fiddly to work with. You see me there using the stick from an old super glue container. The plastic doesn't stick to the super glue, so it's really easy for manipulating glue covered pieces. Here I'm adding in the bottom tusk teeth for this sort of skull facade. generously filled with spackle. Need to add a little bit more symmetry. Those front panels were these from this Hulk toy where he punches out a wall, but they needed a bit more width on the left-hand side. Here I'm setting out a whole bunch of gribblies, way more than I end up using, but I go around and do kind of a pass, adding detail onto any smooth or boring panel. Here I ended up making another pipe with a hair elastic. And I had a few little patches or panels kind of around at random spots, sort of half-hearted repairs. A few more rivets being added on the front here. Again, using that other super glue stick to position them without getting it stuck to everything. Did one more pass where I added a few more rivets to the top. Just figured I could add a bit more depth. A few rivets to the back. Bit of patchwork on the tire. Why wouldn't you use metal on a rubber tire? So here's just kind of a quick pan around of the completed body or main body of this Ork Gargant. It still needs to have its arms and some weapons and a head made for it, and those will be coming along in a future video. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see the rest of this build and other build videos, please consider sharing and subscribing to this channel.